Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial here in ARK Survival Ascended. And if you're starting out on a new map or you're just looking for a brand new base, this one might serve you very well as a little all-in-one base in the Japanese theme. Perfect if you're starting out on Ragnarok and still looking for a new original base design. This one has a main building for all of your storage and crafting needs, of course, as well as a little Dino Pen and balcony to the side, and also some stables on the other side. So there's plenty of room for you and some of your tames. And there's no mods needed to build this thing, so you can easily build this even on official, and it's mostly utilizing a lot of the new building parts that we got with the 5.5 engine upgrade. Of course, as always, if you enjoy seeing these kinds of build videos and you want to see more, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, and of course, like the video because it always helps me out a ton. And feel free to leave suggestions for future builds that you'd like to see down in the comments below. And if you're jumping into Ragnarok and you're still looking to host a server for yourself, check out my link in the description. It helps me out a great deal. With that being said, let's jump right in to the building. Okay, and of course, we're starting out with the foundations again, and we want to start out right here and making 5 wide start. This is going to be the stables, and they're going to be 9 long in total, so just like this. And then of course, we want to make sure that we square this out completely. So that's going to be the stables to the side of the building. We can of course fill in these foundations completely, and this is going to be a really convenient spot to keep well, any kind of dino or tame that can easily fit inside this one. Then right over here, we want to start with another foundation. We want to then take this out by 6 in total, so just one further. And then we want to also make sure that it is going to be 6 wide on this side, so it's going to be 6 by 6, so we can just make sure that we fill in the entire square. So it's going to be 6 by 6, meaning it's one longer here on the front of the building. And then of course we can also make sure that we fill in this entire section with our full foundations all the way around. There we go. So we have the big square, which is going to be the main building, and then we have the stables there to the side. And then we actually want to go right over here. So this is the middle line where the stables and the main house meet. We want to go 2 on this side and 2 on that side to have a little addition. We want to take out our triangle foundations, switch to the quarter foundations, and basically we want to have a gap of 2, and then we can have 2 of those quarters. We can have another gap of 2 more quarters, and then it should line up with the end of the build where we want to just extend it. We want to take out our stairs, add them in between here, which are going to be the entrance ways to the stables. And then we also want to add in the stairs right here in the middle of the main square build. That's going to be the main entrance, and if it allows you, we can add in the slope walls on the sides of the stairs so that we have a nice way into the build. Then it's time to take out our pillars. For now, we just want to add 1 to the corner and make sure that we extend it back down to the ground. Of course, here we just have to add the pillar, and then here again we can extend it back into the ground. And because it's easier for me to show you first where all the pillars are going to be, so you know exactly if you've got enough space for the entire build, we're going to place the pillars that we'll need here for the bottom part of this pen. For now, we want to take out a temporary beam right here and go in by 1. And then here, this is where we'll need the first pillar. Then we can go with some beams this way. We actually want to go out by 4 in total. So now this one is 4. We can have 1 at the end and 1 right there in the middle, and then we can take out these temporary beams. So these pillars we're going to need. So the other side of the building, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we'll bring this one out by 1 that way, and then we want to have another 3 going this direction so that we can have 1 pillar there, 1 right in the middle, and 1 here at the end. And once again, we can then remove all of these pillars. Then here on this side, we will also have some beams. We want to go out by, well, 4 in total. We can't do that right now, so we need to add 1 pillar in over there, take it out by 1 more, and we can have another pillar right over there. And that's the extra amount of space that we'll need to the side for the Dino Pen. Of course, we're gonna need to do much more building here, but size-wise, this is about the footprint that you will need, except we'll have one more staircase at the back to have an extra entrance there. And we can actually also add in a staircase right over here for another entrance over there. All right, we're gonna start here on the side with these stables. We're going to add 1, 2 and 3 gateways right over here, and whilst we're using the gateways, we might as well place one right over there as well. And we can then of course add in the actual gates themselves too. Then we want to take out our thatch pillars. We want to add 3 right over there, 3 right over here, and we'll repeat that same pattern for all of these sections. And using the thatch pillars mostly because of the bamboo aesthetic, which is quite nice for a build like this, but of course you're free to use something stronger if you really want to. We do not have to add a pillar right here on the edge because this is going to be the wall of the main building. Here at the back of the build, however, we're basically going to be repeating this same pattern, so we also want to add in these pillars just like this for each of these same sections. And then if we can, underneath we want to add in some stone pillars just to make it look all a little bit more supported. There we go. And of course we'll do that at least here on this side of the building as well. Then we'll take out the beams and we want to start adding it from right over here and basically go around wherever we're not going to have an entrance. So we'll fill in this entire section. There we go. We'll skip the gates, of course, just like that. We don't have to do this wall for now. And then, of course, we can add one more right over there. Then we'll take out our wooden walls and we'll place a normal wooden wall at the bottom of all of these sections between the pillars, just like that. And then we can change them to the frontier skins. There we go. We'll use that just so that we have a different look. Then over here, we'll have a normal wooden wall and we'll flip it around and we'll fill in these sections in between. There we go. Same thing over here, filling in all of these sections just like that. And then of course we can fill in this remaining section as well, and we can have one normal wall there. We'll have a nice frontier skin, of course, and we also want to have a double doorway here, which we can also change to the frontier skin. And we can also add in the doors here, of course, and we actually want to change these to the saloon doors just to get, you know, an appropriate door here for the stables. Here at the end of the build, we also want to add in some normal walls in these positions, and then of course change them to the frontier skins just like that. And then we also want to place some full walls all the way at the top of this wall. We can face in or place in these walls too, and then we can also continue the tops of these parts of the wall just like that. Here we'll take out some quarter walls. We'll have 2 over here, 2 over there, and then here at the back we actually want to start with those 2, but we can also add in these to the side, so we kind of make this shape going on, and that's going to be turned into windows. We of course want to use the frontier skins on these so that they match nicely with the other sections of the wall. There we go, just like that. And then here we want to also fill in the top sections for these roof parts, of course. There we go, we can fill in this entire section just like that. And over here we even want to fill in these sides of the window so that we leave that nice window shape, which is going to be the same size for all of these. Then we'll take out the thatch railings, which I really like the look of for these types of windows. So we'll fill in the middle part with some nice railings just like this. And we can do that for all of these windows that we've now created. So we'll do the same thing for each of these. There we go. Then we can also take out some thatch pillars and we can add them right along the sides of the window. Just like that. We'll do that for each one of these, of course. Then we can switch to the beams, and we can also have a beam going across the bottom of these sections. There we go. Then you can take out your quarter ramps and we can have them just above the windows just like that. For all of these, just as a nice extra little detail. And we'll take out our half thin beams. And we want to add 2 along the front. And then we can have some supports going back into the build just like that. So we'll do that for each of these little window sections. There we go. Adding in all of these. Just like that. Alright, so then we have a good start for the first layer of these tables. It's time to start with the dividers. So we want to make sure that this is 3 wide. We have a double doorway there. Another one of 3 wide. And another double doorway right over there. We can then add in the doors itself, just like this. And of course, change them to the frontier skins, as well as adding in the saloon doors for each of these sections. So basically, that's going to allow you to quickly walk from one pen to the other without having to go through the outside. And then we want to start with a layer of these quarter walls along the bottom. Same thing over here, all the way through to the end. And of course, these ones we all want to change to the frontier skins. Same over here, all the way through to the end. Then we want to find the middle of the entire thing. So after 2.5 foundations, we want to add in a pillar. We want to make it at least 3 high for now. And then the same thing over there, 3 high as well. Then we actually want to raise them up by 2 more above it. And then we want to take out our beams, and we'll have a beam going across. So basically after the first 3, we'll have the beam, which should line up with the rest of the build that we have so far. So this beam will bring all the way through the end of the wall, and then we'll add 3 more beams here on this side too, so that will touch the other wall that we'll still have to build. And then from right here, we'll start with adding 2 beams to each side, just like this. Same over here. Bring out 2 beams to both sides, and then of course we can use some quarter pieces or half pieces to end up the beam at the wall so that it is completed. There we go. And then of course we can take out some scaffolding, and we can make sure that we add in some supports into the stable so that it looks like everything is supported nicely, and you know, just looks a little bit more like a proper stable or barn. We can of course add them here at the side as well. There we go. Just like that. And then here at the bottom, we want to add in some railings going from one side to the other. Maybe you can't overlap it inside. You can just use the half railings, of course. But yeah, just to save some time and resources, we can just go from one side to the other like that. And then over here, we want to add in some extra scaffolding pieces, just like that. And we can have them go to the other side as well. Same thing over here. Have the scaffolding pieces just like that, again, to really create that attic barn feel here. Then we want to take out our wooden quarter ceilings, and we want to start adding a little layer here along the outside of the build. So first of all, we're going to go along the entire back here, or front actually, of the building, just like that. And we'll do the same thing here along the back of the building. This is so that we get back to a even number for the roof itself. So for now, we'll just start filling all of those in, just like that. Okay, then it's time to start on the roof, or actually we'll start with the ramps. We want to start with the ramp right here. We want to bring it up by 2 in total, just like that, and it should perfectly align with some of the structures that we've already placed down. So we'll just bring it all the way here to the end. And of course, we want to do the exact same thing on the other side of the build as well. So we'll bring this along and just bring this all the way across back to where the main building is going to be eventually. We actually also want to make sure that we change these to the frontier skins. I like the look of those usually a little bit more, so we'll change those before we forget it. We can of course do the same thing here on the other side, just like that, all the way across to the other side of the build. And then continuing with the roof, we actually want to add in some roof pieces. So this last layer is going to be made out of roofs all the way to the end. And of course, that means we can now also fill in the other side over here, all the way across just like that. We can, of course, take out our ramp corners now and have them right over there as well as over here. And then we can have some more ramps going in between to get this nice shape here. That does mean we have some space left on this side, which means we can take out some quarter walls and go along the top of this wall, filling this in. Then we go to the shallow slope walls and fill in these corner sections just like that. And we actually want to change these to the frontier skin. So just like that, we'll have a nice change of pace. And then up here, we actually also want to add in the slope walls. We can make them just face this way this time. We can then also connect these two sides up and change to the normal slope walls for the top layer. We can then change this all to the frontier skin, as well as these to the frontier glass skin, so that we get a nice little window there. Then we can take out our beams and make sure that we have a beam going across from one side to the other. And then we want to take out our roofs. We want to go for some quarter roofs over here, just so that we create a nice little overhang, and some quarter stone ramps right along the side to, again, make sure that we have that little overhang going on. And then here along the edge of the roof, we want to actually add in a layer of these quarter ceilings all the way around, just to expand it a little bit more and basically round off the curve that we're making for the roof. There we go, all the way along the side, just like that. And of course, we also want to make sure that we go along the side here on the back of the building. Basically, we want to make sure that everything is the same everywhere. Then we can add these on the corners, and we can have the railings go along the sides just like that, all the way until we meet the end. And we might have to have a half pillar at the end. Same thing, of course, here on this side, making sure that those railings go from one pillar to the other side. And then, of course, the back of the building, we'll do the exact same thing, just following it with these railings until we get to the corner. And we might again have to use a little half railing and another half railing there. And unfortunately right now you can't make the half railing go slightly up, so we'll leave it at that. But of course in this corner we can add another half pillar. Then we can take out our slope wall, go for the shallow slope wall and add it in right over here to create a little bit more shape to this part of the roof. Then of course we can add these stone railings right there, and then we can go along with the rest of the roof just like this. And then right at the end we'll need a little half railing to finish that section off. Then we want to have a stone thin pillar right at the end, so that's going to be the centerpiece, and we're actually going to use that as a snap point. So we want to take out the stone railings, go through the different snap available until you get the right one that lines up with the side of the roof for both of these. So we want to have those going, and then we want to continue that into those little pillars just like that. So make sure that they follow the shape of the roof, and then we get a nice build like that. So that is pretty much how we built the stables, and I personally really like the way that this looks. And it's of course a very practical addition to your base. Okay, and before we start on the main base, we're going to add in the staircase so it makes it a little bit easier to work on separate layers. So we want to take out our quarter stairs. I really like the look of the thatch one, and we want to start from this pillar that we placed, go in by the one foundation, and then we can add in our first thatch stair. And then in total we want to make sure that we have 8 of these. So it's going to continue for a little bit further until we get to the right layer, which is right over here. And that means that we can add in our wooden ceiling. We can then make sure that this is also 6 wide in total. And of course, this side It's also going to be 6. This side is going to be 6. And this one we can bring in for just a little bit, just like that. And of course, fill in the remaining size right there too. And that means we can kind of just fill in this entire floor so that we have this floor available to work with, which will make going up and down whilst building a lot easier for sure. And we'll continue this pattern right over here. So in the opposite corner where that stair comes up, we'll add another stair. This time it's going to go up by 6 in total. So just like that. And again, that will help us for the next layer. And then here at the end of the stairs, we want to make sure that we add 2 more. We want to add 2 more here as well. We actually want to make sure that it is 8 in total. So 1 further there and 1 further there. For now, that will be enough. Again, this is just easy access to the next layer when we start working on it. And we might as well add that in now. We'll take out our pillars. We want to make sure that we raise this up by, well, at least the 4 until this next layer. And then we want to have 3 more right over there. So again, we're going to raise up this pillar all the way until we have these, until we have the 3 right on this platform. And then of course here on the other side, we want to do the same thing. So make sure that this goes all the way to this layer and then 3 more from there. So we'll raise this up and then 3 more from right here. Then we'll take out those stone walls and we can actually add a layer of stone walls right here at the top of this layer of the build. So we can actually go all the way through and go around it. So everything on this first layer, the top wall, is going to be these stone walls, just like that. And then for this layer, we're going to actually do the exact same thing. So once again, we'll add in these stone walls all the way around. There we go. Same thing over here. Adding them all in just like that. Okay, we'll add a double doorway right there in the corner. And we also want to have one right over here in this corner. Then we can take out all quarter walls. We'll add 2 right there. And then we can start adding them in along the bottom layer here. We want to continue that over on this side and just follow the entire side of the building from one pillar to the next. There we go. Same thing over here. And then we'll continue it on the other side of the gate. We'll also start filling in this side so we can continue these quarter walls all the way until we meet back up with the first pillar. So we've circled the entire build. Then first, this wall here with the stables, we want to start adding in some adobe walls. If you do not have adobe on the map you're playing on, you could also just use normal wooden walls and then just don't change these layers to the frontier skin. Here below these walls, we also want to have a layer of some more quarter adobe walls, just like that, to fill it all in. And speaking of the frontier skin, we want to make sure that we skin this bottom layer all the way around the build, including these doorways, just like that. We'll go all the way around and get that nice skin in doorway again. There we go. And then these last ones as well, of course. And then over here, we can actually add in the actual doors, and we can also make sure to change that to the frontier skin. You could add a door here, but I personally would leave it open because it's just going to go into the hallway. So it makes more sense just to not have to open the door all the time. And then we take out some adobe quarter walls. We have 2 of them right over here. And then we can fill in the rest of the wall with the full adobe walls right like this. Then we want to take out our thatch half thin beams. We want to place 1 there. We can get it come out by 2. And then we'll make it go back into the building. We can take out our thatch quarter ramps and have them just above the doorway as a nice extra little detail. And then over here on this side, we want to add 2 adobe quarter walls there, 2 over here as well. We can add the full walls right here at the top, and then we can have another layer of these quarter walls right over there. Then we can make a beautiful little window by adding in some thatch railings just like this. And of course, we can have our thatch quarter ramps just like that. We can have some of these thin half beams and then add a nice little detail back into the building. There we go. Then we can actually place down some pillars along the side and a beam along the bottom to have this nice little window set. The first layer of the front is also completed. Then here for this side, we want to start with 2 adobe quarter walls right there, 2 over here as well, and then the middle 4 we also want to add in. Then we can take out our full walls, add 2 right over there, just follow it like this, and the same thing over there. And then over here we want to actually add in 2 quarter walls and 2 more quarter walls right over there. Then we can make some nice windows again, add in the thatch railings, add in some more thatch railings over there, and then of course repeat the same kind of thing. So we have some quarter ramps here, quarter ramps there. Then we can have some nice pillars along the side of these, just like that. And then we can have a beam across the bottom, and then we can have our thin beams just like that. And over here, same thing over here on the front. And we can add all of those little details in just like that. And then we can start here on the back. We want to start with 3 of these adobe quarter walls. Then we want to bring it up by 3 as well. And we can go across just like this. There we go. We can fill this all the way in back down. Then the full walls can fit in right there, all the way along the top, fill in those, and then just some more quarter walls to fill in the last gap there. And of course, this is going to turn into a nice big window, just like that. You can have some ramps again above the window. There we go. And of course, the same kind of thing that we usually have, we want to now add again. We can actually also add in a support there in the middle, and right there on the side again. Now we can also quickly work on this addition on the back. We want to add 2 pillars here, 2 pillars here, and make sure that we extend it back into the ground. We want to take out all quarter walls, add 3 over there, 3 over here as well. Then we should have a double door right there in the middle. And of course, we can add the actual doors in, and we can change all of this to the frontier skin. There we go. Then we can have some more quarter walls going up like this, going across. There we go, just like this. So we create a little shape for a window. Same thing over here. Create another little shape like that. And then, of course, we can have a normal wall right above the doorway. And of course, if you want to actually make this fit, you have to go to the second variant to make sure that there's no little gaps anymore in your textures. And then here in the windows, we want to use some of these half railings, just like this. There we go. So we can still make some nice little windows. Of course, we can have some pillars along the side as well. There we go. And some tiny half beams. And then we can have the ramps along the top, as well as our little beams to add supports to that. There we go. We just want to add all of those in. Then here along the side, we can also add in some quarter walls, change those to the frontier skin to match up with the rest of the building. Then we can have some normal wooden quarter walls, and we can flip them with the right way to the outside. We can have the full wall above it, just like that. And we want to take out our slope walls, go to the shallow version and add that right between. Then we can take out our stone ramps and add in a nice roof along the top. We can then go to the quarter ramps, add them here along the side, just like that. Then we can take some stone quarter ceilings and add them right along the edge, just like this. And then we can also add these thin pillars right on the corners. We can have some half railings right alongside there. And then we want to make sure that we get the right snap points, cycle through them, add a railing right along there, and do the same thing right along there. And then of course we can do a railing around the front here as well. Then what we want to do is take out our stairs, snap them right here to the entrance. And if it lets you, you could even have some railings along the side, but that kind of depends on your landscaping. The same goes here on the front, actually. We can also add in some railings if it will allow us, just for some extra little details. And with that, we have the whole first layer of the main building complete, as well as this little entrance on the back. And we can move on to the next layer. We've already added in the stairs, of course, to get here. We want to take out those ceilings right here on the corner. We want to expand it. We want to do the same thing on the opposite corner. And then we want to expand it by 3 more. And then we'll start filling this all the way in from one side to the other. This is basically going to be a nice and big balcony, as well as it's going to help make this into a Dino Pen. We then want to add in some quarter walls along the edge of this new platform that we've just created. So we're just going to go around, add in these quarter walls all the way around the outside, just like so. We'll continue it, of course, on this side, and then the last little 2 over there. And we want to change all of those into the frontier skins as well. There we go, all the way across the outside, all the way around until we got all of them. And then we actually also want to do the ceilings, or at least in my opinion it looks a lot nicer, so I always like to change them in the frontier skins. But of course, your personal preference whether or not you want to do that too. But I always like this wood a lot more, especially as like a proper ceiling or floor inside of your build. So yeah, we're going to change all of these to these skins. Then we want to take out our thin pillars, and on these corners we want to add 2 here as well. Add 2 more, and over there we want to add 2 more, and of course this corner as well. Then we want to take the half pillar, add 1 right there in the middle, same thing on the other side, and then over here every 2 we want to add in another one of these half pillars. And then in between we can of course add in all railings so that we have a nice and safe and secure balcony. So we just want to go all the way around, adding in these railings just like that. There we go. Now, aesthetically, of course, it would be most pleasing just to use bamboo pillars everywhere, as I think they fit this kind of build quite well, but that might not be the most practical solution. So at least for these ones that we already have the cornerstones of, we want to use the thin stone pillars, or you could also use wood, I suppose, and we'll change the thin ones into the frontier skins. But yeah, the wooden ones actually without skins work quite well too, because they're nice and rounded. But we'll add more pillars in between so you can always use those. And again, I prefer the look, of course, of the thatch ones in between, but yeah, they're a little bit more easy to break, of course, which might not be perfect for your Dino Pen depending on what kind of area you live in. But at least these we want to use the frontier skins for, because I've used those in my original design as well, and they work quite well. They are quite nice to look at too. So we'll have these as the start of this whole phase. And then, as I said, I'm using the thin thatch pillars because they look a little bit nicer. But of course, using the thin wooden ones at least, or even the stone ones, and maybe skinning them would be a little bit more practical to make it actual secure if you're planning on living in a slightly more dangerous area where it's likely that something will try to attack the tames on the inside. But yeah, for this, of course, the Japanese look, working with the bamboo, it just looks so nice, right? So there we go. We want to do this for that side. We're going to do it for the other side here as well. So first of all, we'll add in these top pillars all the way around, and then we can just kind of start filling these all in. There we go. Then we'll do this section. Just bringing them all down. And basically make like a barred little Dino Pen to the side. We already have the stables, but this might fit some slightly bigger or like slightly longer tames a little bit more easily. There we go. We'll add all of these and we can fill in these two sections. That section is going to have our gateway to enter, so we'll do a little bit differently over there. And for now we'll fill in all these three, and then of course we'll do this one right here as well. And all the way back into the ground. Okay, then over here we want to add these first two and these last two. And we will bring those all the way down into the ground. And we'll use those as the guides to place down our gateway, because we don't really want to have a foundation for this entire side bit. So we're just going to kind of wing it a little bit more for the actual gateway. But with the two that we've just placed, we should be able to kind of just fit the gateway roughly between those. You can place it in and add the gate itself, of course, and I would also change these to the frontier skin. And now that we've got all the gates, we can actually do this for all the gateways, because I personally think this fits the style a little bit more, but of course personal preference as to which gates you like the most. But this will give you a nice entrance for this Dino Pen, and then above this one we can fill in up until it kind of hits the gateway, so that the whole feature is still intact. And of course smaller creatures might still be able to walk through all this, so what you kind of want to do is either with railings or quarter walls, you want to fill in a little bit of these layers. I would at least kind of go like maybe two like this, so that you're pretty sure that nothing will be able to get in without your wanting to. And we can just kind of continue this all the way around the sides, just like that. And then the same thing right over here. So yeah, that's how we create this nice little Dino Pen to the side, to give some extra room for some extra tames, as well as we have a nice big balcony that you can definitely also land some tames on, of course. So we'll start with the walls over here, and first of all we're going to do the middle two with some normal full ceilings, and then we'll take out our wooden quarter walls to go all along the bottom layer of this part of the building. So just like that, we'll fill it all in, and of course once again we'll change them all to the frontier skins. Then we'll take out a quarter adobe and we'll make a shape for a nice window just like that. We can also fill in underneath these, and we can continue this same shape for a window on the other side as well. So then we can add in our thatch railings for the actual window just like that. And of course we want to have a quarter ramp right above it, and then our little thin half pillars or beams to create these little details around the windows. There we go. Same thing over here, of course, all the way around it just like that. Then we want to place down our nice quarter walls all the way along the back and the front of the build as well, just like this, all the way from one pillar to the other. And of course this will be changed all to the frontier skins again. There we go. Same thing here on the other side, just like that. I have a full wall there, a full wall there, and then two full walls right in the middle. And the same thing is going to be happening here on the other side. We then have some quarter walls underneath these. There we go. And that means we have some quarter walls at the top of that section too. So we'll do the exact same thing here on the other side, just filling in these walls, and once again creating some nice window frames. So we'll fill in those windows with our thatch railings just like that. Same thing over here on the other side. There we go. And of course, we want to add our details to it once again. So our little quarter ramps above the windows for each of these. Just like that. Same thing over here. And then of course, adding in our little details to get a nice entrance going for them. So we'll do the exact same thing. There we go. And of course, on the front of the build, we want to have the same thing again. So just adding in these little thin pillars or beams as extra details. There we go. So right here along the middle of this this floor, we want to have 4 little quarter walls right there. And then we want to have 6 of them right over here. We're basically going to create a divider, which means we can have a nice double doorway right there in the middle. And then we can, of course, fill this in with the Adobe quarter walls first. Just like that. We can have a full wall right above that. And then we have a stone wall right above that. Basically, to divide this room into 2 sections so that you can more easily dedicate one room for a specific purpose and another room for something else. We, of course, want to change these all to the frontier skins. And if you want to, you could add a door, but you could also just leave it open just like this. Then we can take out all quarter walls right over here. And basically what we want to do is make sure that we can have a door right in the middle. So we're going to have 5 of them over here. And then we're going to have 5 of them over there. Then we can add in the double doorway as well as the actual doors. And of course, change this all to the frontier skins, just like that. Then we can have the Adobe wall just going from one side to the other, and then just fill in the little gap with some quarter pieces in between those. There we go. And then next to the doors, we want to have some pillars. We'll do the same thing next to this door. We'll have a big pillar right above the door, and above this one, we can actually have 2 big pillars just like this. And we can have some quarter pillars right next door that one, so it actually matches the same kind of shape. Then we want to take out the wooden ceilings, and we actually want to go around and start filling in the rest of this layer. And for now, that means that we just kind of want to go one outside the wall that we have placed for the previous layer, and we can just kind of go all the way around. Should meet up with the help that we already placed down before. And we can just start filling in all of these sections so that we have another floor to work with. And of course, we can have some quarter pieces right along there so that we have an entrance for the stair. Then we want to take out our ramps again, and we want to start going around the builds underneath these ceilings that we've just placed and attach the ramps back into the building as some nice supports for that next layer. And we want to do that all the way around, and of course that means also here on the front, and just follow it all the way around the building. Then we want to take out our ramp corner pieces to fill in the corners of this section. And again, this will just kind of support the section above, the attic of the building, and add a nice little detail to it as well. And especially because you can only see half of the stone layer now, which I actually quite like too. And then over here, so just above the stables, we want to add these 2 ceilings as well. And that actually means that we can transform this entire layer into the frontier skins, or at least that's what I personally would do, because I prefer the look of this wood to the other default wood by a long shot, as I said. So yeah, we'll skin all of this into these nice frontier planks. And yeah, we'll just go around the entire platform, change them all just like this. Okay, we want to place 2 quarter walls right there, the same right over here, and we'll do the same thing here on the other side as well. So we'll start with all of these quarter pieces. Then we'll have a full wall here and a full wall there. And we'll do the same thing here over on this side, adding in those walls. And then what we want to do is we want to take out our shallow slope wall. We want to have 2 of them right over there. 2 of them right over here. And then we want to go into the normal slope walls, into some scaffolding, and 2 more normal slope walls. And of course, we can then change all of this into the frontier skins. Just like that, to create a nice little entrance over here. We also want to add 2 pillars over there and over there. And underneath this platform, we actually want to make sure that we add in all scaffolding all the way into the building. And then for some extra details, we can have some half pillars right along the end, as well as some railings along the side. So we have a nice little entrance where you could park a flyer and enter the attic up here. Right on the other side here, we want to add in our slope walls just like this. We can then also add in our slope wall just like that. And we want to add in some temporary walls so we can start this shape, take it out, and fill it in and complete it like that. Have 2 of them, of course, at the top. And then some shallow slope walls to go down the sides like that. Once again, we want to take out our frontier skins and we want to start changing a bunch of these into the frontier skin, just like that. Change to the glass and have a nice big window on that side. Then we'll take some quarter walls and we'll have 6 of them right over there. Same on the other side, just like that. And then we want to actually make another wall here. So we'll have these quarter walls right here. We'll have some full walls right there. Then we want to have some more quarter walls in the middle like that. And then we have 2 normal walls right over there. We can have a nice doorway there in the middle. And then of course we'll have our slope walls to get the right shape for this layer. There we go. Switch to the normal ones just like that. Add in a door and then we can change it all, of course, into the frontier skins. There we go. And that basically means that we'll have a bedroom over here and we'll have the attic where you can park some flyers and maybe have some extra storage or whatever right in the front part of it. So we'll change all these skins. There we go. Of course, here you want to add in some railings as well as a little half railing there. Now in my build, what I actually also did is I added a little corner just like this and then closed it back off in the same shape. So I could have a chimney right here. You do lose some space if you want to do that, but then you do have a nice little fireplace and a chimney on the outside. So if you want to do that, that corner is what you do it with. And with all those additions, it means that we have 2 more roofs to start to build. So it's time to start on the roof. First, we'll do the roof here for the balcony. So we want to start on this corner and we want to make sure that we get the ramp in place right over there. Then we want to make sure that we meet up with the other pillar and of course go up by another ramp just like this. Sometimes if you don't get the right snap point, you can also of course just go from this or place a temporary wall or something to get the right ramp in place. And then, of course, on this side, we also want to make sure that it goes across like this. And then we also want to make sure that we add 2 more right over here. And then we want to go into our full roofs and we're just going to go up like this. And, of course, another one until we meet in the middle. Should also perfectly align with that window that we've got going on there. Then we want to take out a ramp corner and we want to fix this little gap right there. Same thing, of course, here on the other side. There we go. Then we have the quarter roofs that we can add here in the front for a little overhang. So we want to just follow that shape. Change it to the quarter ramps. Go along this side again. Same thing over here. And we actually don't want to forget about this side. Also add some quarter ramps there. And then also some quarter ramps right over here on the other side. Then we want to start filling them in just along the outside like this. Some quarter ceilings. Same thing here on the other side, just so that we have the whole curve completed. There we go. And then on the corner, we want to add a little half pillar for all of those sections. There we go. Then we can have a little half stone railing on both of those corners. We can go to the full stone railing, get the right snap point right over there. Also, of course, add them in here along the side of the build, just like that. And then over here, of course, we want to once again cycle through the snap points to follow the shape of the roof, just like that. There we go, and we'll follow it back down here on the other side until we align like this. Little half railing on both of those corners, and then of course fill in these remaining pieces with some more railings, just like that. So that already gets a nice little bit of detail in. Here along the top, we want to make sure that we add in our shallow sloped wall. And of course, we'll have a railing across it, and then a last little half railing to kind of fill that in. And of course, a little thin pillar right there at the end for some extra detail. So that is the roof for the balcony that adds in a nice amount of detail right over there. And then we can of course start on the roof of this main part of the building. We want to again start with 2 layers of ramps going from one side to the other. So we'll just start filling that in across the side. And of course, we'll do the same thing right here over on the other side. So we'll start filling in the layers of ramps to start with, kind of just following, of course, the shape of the walls that we already have in place. Then the last 2 are going to be full roofs, of course, going up. That's also why we've been using stone for the roofs, because those textures match for both the ramps and the roofs, which is just going to look a little bit nicer. There we go. All the way across from one side to the other. So that's the basic roof. Then we want to take, of course, the quarter pieces. Add a little overhang here on this side. Just like that. And of course, we'll do the same thing here over on the other side as well. Bringing it back down over here. Then the ramps, of course, to continue this overhang. There we go. This has got to be one of the best additions, right? Like even just the amount of possibility this adds is incredible, and it saves having to do some weirder tricks to get the little overhangs working. And then of course at the end we still want to have a layer of these quarter ceilings to once again really get that curve going in there, ending with a little flat piece at the end. And of course same thing here over on the other side, making sure that we add all of them in. There we go. All the way to the end. We want to, of course, add in our shallow walls just to get those pieces in. And then, of course, we can have our thin pillars right there along the end. We can have our little half thin pillars at the corners of all of these sections, of course. There we go. And then we'll have a stone half railing in the corners to get started with. And then, of course, we want to add in all of those little details going all the way around. So we want to just use the different snap points to get the right railings in alongside, because it won't just snap to these quarter pieces yet, unfortunately. So we'll just have to snap from different points. Just following the shape of the build until we've gone all the way round again. So yeah, the sides are always going to be the easiest part, because we can actually just snap them easily like that. And then this is going to go once again cycling through all the different snap points. Sometimes it might be hard. It might be easier to start from the middle here, from this pillar. Might give you better snap point options. But yeah, with a little bit of patience, you should be able to get all the right snap points for all of these sections just quite easily. And then we can also fill in this side once again, all the way to the other side. And of course, fill in the top layer. Just like that. And if you want to, as a bonus detail, what you could do is add in this, as well as 2 little beams like that. And a scaffolding piece right on top of that, just to kind of have some like a hauling mechanism where you can have your goods being delivered to your attic, of course. But yeah, that is pretty much how we built the entire outside of the building, which looks quite nice. Of course, it will look much better if you start painting. But before we get to that, let's focus a little bit more on adding some extra details along the inside, because we have these stairs, but we can definitely add in a few extra details. First of all, we might want to add in some like nice pillars. The easiest is of course going to be every other 2, because that kind of lines up with the normal stair structures. But if you really want to, you could of course add some more. Also prevents people from falling off a little bit more. And it also just gives a cool effect. And even with the half pillars, we can fill in the missing gaps. There we go. And then this little trick. Yeah, the half railings right now don't snap to the stairs yet. So we have to do the same little trick with snap points, where we cycle through all of them to get them to snap in the right positions to, yeah, make sure that your staircase is even safer. Then, of course, you just want to add those around the staircase itself. We have another stair, of course, going up here. So what we want to do again is adding in some pillars. Just like that. And then, of course, half pillars for the sections in between to fix the gaps. There we go. And then once again, if you really want to, you could snap the railings with enough cycling until you get the right snap points. There we go, making the stairs a little bit safer. And I think over here we already did it. So that is how you make all the staircase secured and connected to the main building. And that will give you a lovely Japanese-inspired starter base, including some stables to the side, as well as a little dino pen to the other side, a nice big balcony, and plenty of room on the inside to last you for a fair little while. And if you want to make it look like this, there's a few additions. I actually added this little addition right here on the top, so that's 2 little quarter walls and then some shallow slope walls, as well as some of these extra railings. Now, this might not be possible on official because there's a little bit of overlapping, and it is also a little bit much. But if you wanted to, you could add this detail right here on top in the middle of the roof. And of course, you can see that I've painted the whole thing a little bit. So everything that was adobe has been painted with the silver color, just all regions, to get this nice look for the walls. And then the roofs have the ocean color to really get that nice blue in there. And yeah, I quite like the way that works together. But of course, feel free to play around with some different colors. If you're painting the railings, I would try to keep the top part in the normal black, just because that is a nice little contrast with colors to have. So it's definitely something that I would keep in mind if you're doing it. But yeah, this is what the base will look like. These little quarter pieces here in front are a perfect place to place down some little small crop plots to place some plants. These extra lamp additions are standing torches with the J cosmetic on them, so you have some very nice Japanese lamps wherever you want them. This dragon skull is from the Castle Craft Structures custom cosmetic, and these are from the Easter event. Some nice colors as well. But yeah, you can see we have a nice dino pen here where even a T-Rex can fit inside. I've got some hay on the ground, which is from the Western Deco mod. Very, very nice to add some details with. And then if we take a look over here, we have these pathways, which is from Ferry's Pathways. We have, of course, the stables in here with some decorations, as well as cryo fridges and other taming related machinery in here so that you can do all sorts of breeding here. Maybe you wouldn't have all of this really early on, but if you stay around for a little bit longer, yeah, you might, you know, you could definitely spend a decent amount of time here because there is a decent amount of space to work with inside of this base. And then right here in the middle, we of course have the main survival part. So there's room for an industrial forge, for some storage along the sides, the other crafting stations and storage you can have. This is actually the grinder from Castle Keeps and Forts, which is a really awesome mod. And I just love the animation that it has. We have some extra storage here in the little hallway too. But yeah, you can see you have a decent amount of space here. Then if we go upstairs, we have another bigger storage room with some more crafting stations as well as the generator. So again, you have a decent amount of space. And because we divided this room in half, that means that you have a whole other room left. This is a kind of like a nice little kitchen over here. Again, using the J cosmetic there for the grill to turn it into something that fits this theme a little bit more. We have a nice little corner here as well to hang out with. And then we get to the balcony where we have the outdoor kitchen, which is really nice. And of course, you could easily park some flyers here too. And then we could go all the way up to the top right here, and then you can have a little bedroom here with some additional storage, some coziness, and you have a lovely window here of course. And of course we have the rest of the attic as well, where you can have some additional storage as well as easily fly in and out with your flyer so you can quickly get into your base. So yeah, all in all, it really makes for a very nice and convenient Japanese inspired base, which definitely should serve you well from the earliest game to yeah, the later / mid game. Of course, at some point you're probably going to use more room for breeding projects, but you could also always add additional builds to this, of course. Anyway, if you enjoyed using this tutorial and this build, of course, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.